hope you enjoyed today's workout session.
Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the Mind Flow Pilates studio. My name is Taylor Cherisse. I am a certified Mat Pilates Instructor, a women's wellness guide, a cognitive behavioral therapy coach practitioner, and your bestie in all things wellness. Today's video is going to be all about the fundamentals of Pilates. We're going to go over core engagement and the cues that you'll hear in my class and other Pilates classes. We're going to talk about the purpose of proper breathing techniques, pretty much everything that you need to know before you do a Pilates class, or if you have been already doing Pilates, this information will help you just become better in your practice so you gain more mind-body connection and just overall awareness of what your body is supposed to be doing through each and every movement. Let's start off with everyone's favorite, the core engagement. Now, in Pilates, your core is called your powerhouse. And what does that mean exactly? So your core muscles, especially your transverse abdominis, are what stabilizes your body, not just throughout Pilates movement, but throughout all the movements that you do in life: walking, sitting, standing, running. Your core is the center of stability for your body. That's why it's extremely important to have a strong and healthy core for longevity and to be able to continue to move throughout this world. So there are several muscles that make up your core region. But in Pilates, you'll hear a lot about the transverse abdominis, which is your deepest core muscle in your abdominals. It kind of lies right on top of your spine. In Pilates, when you hear instructors say, connect to your transverse abdominis, that is because that muscle is so deep, there's no way for you to just connect to it subconsciously. It's something that you have to consciously activate in order to utilize it. And we do that through proper breathing. When we inhale for 5 through our nose, as you'll do in Pilates, we expand our rib cages posterolaterally, which means our rib cages open to the back to connect to that transverse abdominis muscle, and outwardly, kind of like an umbrella. And then when we exhale, we do it through our mouth, not just to close our rib cage, but to help stabilize our core, which is then giving us the momentum and force that we need to connect to our transverse abdominis and also our pelvic floor, which is sure I'm something you've heard a lot in Pilates too. Connect to your pelvic floor, connect to your pelvic floor, connect to your pelvic floor. It's the exact same as your transverse abdominis in the sense that we don't just naturally connect to our pelvic floor through our day-to-day movements, except, we're using the bathroom, Kegels, and those kind of things. Outside of that, there are very little times where we make a subconscious connection to our pelvic floor. So that's why in Pilates it's extremely important, and you'll hear myself and other teachers say, connect to your transverse abdominis and your pelvic floor on the exhale. And we focus on this in the warm-up exercises so that your body is prepared for the other movements that your body does throughout the session of your classes. Let's do a quick little breathing exercise so you can start to practice connecting to your transverse abdominis and your pelvic floor. You can get into the same position that I am, which I like to call Indian style. Some people call it crisscross. So just so you're sitting on the floor with your knees bent inwardly. You want to make sure that your spine is lengthened, which is another Pilates term. So I'm going to turn to the side so you can see exactly what that means about a lengthened spine. Your lengthened spine is when you're as erect and straight up as possible. You don't want to lean back, but you also don't want to be leaning forward, because you lose that connection to your transverse abdominis and your pelvic floor especially. You want to keep your spine as straight as possible and then pull your chest up towards the ceiling so that you are lengthening your spine. If your chest is caved downward in a flexed position, you're still, again, losing that connection not only to your transverse abdominis and your pelvic floor, but you're putting unnecessary pressure on your spine. This is what it should look like, and if you're not used to being in this position, position, it will feel a little bit uncomfortable. However, with anything, the more you practice, the more comfortable you will start to feel. So you can even take a few minutes just sitting like this in order to, get your spine comfortable being in this position. Especially in this day, in this digital age, a lot of us are sitting at desks, we're hunched over, we're looking at our phones or slumped on the couch. Proper posture begins with lengthening the spine and keeping your chest high and your neck in a neutral position. Neck in neutral, I'm going to try and move my hair so you can see what I mean. So neck in neutral means that your neck is also aligned with your shoulders and your spine. You don't want to extend the head forward, flex the neck downward, or have it leaned too far back in retroversion, okay? And back around to the front. So here in this position, you can place your hands on your knees. Again, lengthen the spine, your chest is high. I want you to take a deep breath in through the nose, keep your eyes open. Expand that rib cage posterolaterally so it goes back towards your spine and out and up like an umbrella. And on the exhale, we close our rib cage so it comes back together and make the conscious connection to our transverse abdominis and our pelvic floor. Let's do this 2 more times just so you can get a good feel for what this is supposed to feel like in your body. So we inhale through the nose for 5. Exhale for 5 through the mouth. Closing the rib cage and connecting to our transverse abdominis and the pelvic floor. 1 more time, we inhale for 5. And exhale. Great. I hope you could begin to feel the difference and create that mind-body connection that Pilates is all about through this really short breathing exercise so that you move forward knowing exactly how to connect to your transverse abdominis and your pelvic floor in my classes and beyond. Next, let's talk about the imprint versus a neutral spine. And for that, I'm going to lay down on my mat so you can see exactly what that means. Now, I think I do a pretty good job of explaining this in class for my students and those who watch my videos, but I know for some people it can be a little bit challenging, especially because as you're going through the workout and you're trying to focus on preparing for the movements and executing them properly, we lose that fundamental principle of imprint versus a neutral spine. So let's talk about neutral spine first. In this position, a neutral spine is when there is a slight curve and there's space between your spine or your back and the mat. Now for some people, this might be challenging, especially for those of us who have larger glutes. Keeping your spine in neutral can be a bit challenging. However, your Pilates instructor will notice this when you show up to class, or you can even ask questions and say, hey, when you say put my spine in neutral, so there's a space between my back and the mat, it feels a little bit uncomfortable. And for that, they most likely will tell you to just go ahead and imprint your lumbar or your spine, push your spine into the mat. So I just did it. I heard imprint and I went ahead and said, "Joop," and drop my spine into the mat. But I'll do it again so you can see it clearly. And I'll put my hands up so you have a better visual. So this is my spine in neutral with the space between my back and the mat. And then for the imprint, we tuck from the lumbar, so the lower back down here, like right above your glutes. You want to push gently, of course, into the mat so that there is no longer that gap or space between your back and the mat. And in doing this, you're really creating a strong connection to your pelvic floor. Okay, we're gonna go again. From neutral to imprint. now one thing to remember is when you go into the imprinted spine position, you don't want to lift your glutes off the floor. It's not what we're going for, because then it puts too much pressure on your back and you're also kind of over engaging your core in a bad way. So make sure that your glutes remain in the mat and you're just imprinting your lumbar. Okay? So let's do a quick breathing exercise here that can help you practice your imprint and your neutral spine. So raise your hands to the ceiling. Make sure to keep your arms aligned with your shoulders. Pilates is all about alignment, creating straight lines and planes of movement. So our arms are up towards the ceiling, palms parallel so they're facing each other, shoulder distance apart so that our scapulas, which are the back of your shoulder blades, your scapulas are pressed into the mat to also give you stability. That's something you should also be hearing in class from your Pilates instructor. Your scapulas to the mat. It just helps stabilize you and keep your neck and head in a neutral position so you're not putting too much pressure and weight on that. So from here, we start off in a neutral spine position. We take an inhale. Extend our rib cage, postural laterally, so back and out. And on the exhale, we close that rib cage and imprint our spine. Again, inhale. We go back into neutral position, open the rib cage. Exhale. Imprint the spine. Connect to our transverse abdominals and our pelvic floor. One more time. Inhale, release. Back into the neutral position of the spine. And exhale. Connect and imprint. Amazing. You can drop your right hand down towards your hip. Left hand follows. Beautiful. And then go back into your neutral spine position. Then from here, you can extend the legs outward. Take your outward hand, I don't know what side you're facing on, so just to say outward hand, for me it's my right. Place it on the mat for support, and use it to slowly bring yourself back up. And you're done. I hope you found this information helpful and it gave you some clarity on how you should be activating and engaging your core muscles and spine, and also breathing throughout your Pilates classes. If there's any other fundamental information that you would like to know in order to support you on your Pilates and wellness journey, I'm more than happy to make another video about it. We'll see you next time in the Mind Flow Pilates studio.